Being a journalist means in-depth analysis that unravels hidden truths, that question the status quo and fact-checks government.
These criminal elements hiding under the cloak of surveillance contractors are the APC elements.
Do you have facts to prove that? Being a journalist means waking up every day with a burning desire for peace, equity and justice for all citizens.
We're being told that the choice you have is to take the lesser of two evils.
It means patriotism via the prism of objectivity and accountability. It means giving my platform to the masses to discuss issues that matter to them.
Some of them, if they bring budget and the budget they look, some of them sleep. They're going to ask how much you are on. I have it.
Thereby shaping government policies and laws. My name is Osasu and I am the People's Journalist.
When I had these thoughts of suicide, I didn't talk to anybody about it. I actually lived with a sibling of mine, and she didn't know what was going on. I was locked in my room for days. I didn't talk about it with my friends. I didn't talk about it with any family member. Potential suicide victims are actually scared. They get to places where they want to end their lives, but they're actually scared to end their lives because they don't know what is actually even on the other side. But one of the reasons I actually stayed alive was because of my sibling. I didn't want her to go through the loss of another loved one. So I had to get myself together. I had to encourage myself. I had to listen to tapes of inspiring messages, tapes of hope, both spiritual and conventional.
Do you know that about 3% of Nigerians die through suicide, according to recent statistics, and that this has become the new norm in the country? Do you know that in the 1990s, Nigerians were classified as the happiest people in the world who could never end their own lives, despite the challenges that faced the country at that time? The big question begging for urgent answers here is, when did this ugly menace of suicide begin?
We have seen a lot of suicide cases coming up on social media, and then the emergence of social media also has tended to highlight the problem, in the sense that 10, 20 years ago, if people kill themselves in Sokoto, in Calabar, in Bubura, we don't get to hear. But practically every suicide case today, almost every suicide case, we're getting to hear, because once somebody knows that has a social media platform, then it posts the fact that so person just committed suicide. So there are two dimensions to it. One is that perhaps indeed there is an increase in the cases of suicide. The other dimension to it is that we are beginning to hear of and know of the cases of suicide much more than was possible before the era of social media. So it is not surprising, actually, when you consider the massive gap between the rich and the poor in this country. It is not surprising that all of a sudden we are seeing an upsurge in suicide. It's not surprising. Young people are scandalized. They are seeing the wealth that a few people are displaying. It is a society that is so unequal. Nigeria, today's Nigeria, is one of the most unequal societies in the world. We have produced a few billionaires, maybe 1% of Nigerians are multi-billionaires. And then we have 70% of Nigerians living below poverty line, less than $2 a day. Now, this is unacceptable, because nature cannot sustain a situation of mass destitution existing side by side with stupendous wealth. And that's what we have.
While other causes like terminal diseases, poverty, financial crisis, emotional stress, social media can lead to resignation and then suicide, over time, it has become common knowledge that 90% of people who commit suicide suffer from mental illnesses.
Most people tend to think or incriminate depression as the only psychopathology that could necessitate suicidal ideation or suicide completion. No. Various forms of other mental illnesses could lead to suicidal ideation and suicide completion. For example, schizophrenia.
Before you can get to the stage of taking your life, you have lost some level of reality. You understand? And so because you've lost some level of reality, it is easy not to feel that the action or step you're about to take, which is commit suicide, take your own life, isn't a difficult thing to do. People do not know this, but they need to find ways in which you can identify that you are getting depressed. One of the major things you would know, and this is not to say that being introversial is a cause, but is that you see people withdrawn, low self-esteem. And then there are also people who are very active, but you don't know what they go through during their quiet times. A lot of thinking, right? A lot of questioning. They're asking themselves questions of why there is a need to exist. There is no fulfillment. When you start seeing that people feel that way, and you would know if you are close to a person, you will know when the person starts feeling separated from reality.
You'll be surprised that somebody sits next to you, sleeps next to you, and may not show any obvious signs, except you are very careful.
In the past 5 years, there has been an increase in the number of youth taking their lives due to situations they feel are above them. We meet up with Mr. X, who attempted suicide early 2019 because of the financial crisis he was experiencing at the time.
It all started in 2014 when I came back from the United Kingdom to Nigeria to settle down, establish my business and my career, and try and make something for myself. So getting back to Nigeria, everything was falling in place, everything was going on fine, business was moving, and 2016 and 17, my business started suffering financially. I was pushing so hard, I was putting so much work and getting very less result. You know, I was trying to get help from wherever I thought I could get help, be it from family, from relations, from state house. Nobody was forthcoming with help. Nobody wanted to partner, nobody wanted to do business with me. So in 2018, just like we've had many fraudulent cases, Yahoo and Ponzi schemes, I fell a victim of fraud. I had invested some money, I had even used my card to get a loan. So I put in some money, I made quite huge numbers of money. I kept trading and trading and trading, and I got up to tens of millions, and suddenly I lost all the money. Yeah, it was at that point I felt suicidal. I got to a very low point. I don't know if I'm going to call it depression, but I didn't have any reason to stay alive again. I really wanted to end it all, you know, but I didn't go further to take anything to end my life because I didn't have the strength or the boldness to actually do that, but I just really wanted to die.
At a time when human beings are losing love and care for each other as either friends or family, most individuals look up to their spiritual leaders as their last hope of strength and succor. Many spiritual leaders have abandoned their duty posts and are focusing on acquiring all the wealth for themselves and their families, not caring what their poor members are going through. Nonetheless, despite this huge neglect by the church for its suffering congregation, there are still a very few churches in the country who are there to help potential victims of suicide in one way or the other.
A number of churches who, especially churches that are doing things that churches are known to be doing traditionally. The Catholic Church, for example, we have St. Vincent de Paul Society. We have the Justice and Peace Group Commission. And we have a lot of programs and projects to reach out to the poor. But we would like to challenge church leaders who think that this is the time to flaunt millions. We need to challenge, the entire society need to challenge religious leaders who flaunt wealth. It is a scandal. It is a scandal that at this time, when young people are committing suicide on account of dehumanizing poverty, that any religious leader whatsoever will be flaunting wealth, will be buying private jets, will be living in palatial mansions. It is a disgrace. It is a shame. It is an embarrassment for any religious leader to live in conspicuous consumption while the people in his or her environment are living in dehumanizing poverty. This is not the time to live lives of vanity. This is the time to go down to say, we are in trouble, and therefore my life, what gives meaning to my life is how many people have been able to raise from poverty, how many people have been able to raise from diseases and sicknesses, how many people have been able to raise from the institution. That's what should give meaning to my life, and not how many cars I have or how many private jets I have.
The role of the government in helping to prevent suicide among Nigerians cannot be overemphasized. Recently, the Senate moved a motion for the ban of the sale of snipers, stating that Nigerians in large numbers now use the supposed agrochemical as a fast means of ending their lives. We believe the government can do better, because banning the sale of a particular drug would not prevent Nigerians from committing suicide, as they would just look for other means to end their lives.
Government should struggle to execute. There are policies already in place, like the National Policy on Education has provided for counselors from primary school to the university. How many primary schools has counselors? How many secondary school has counselors? Even universities that are supposed, either private or public, to have them glaringly, how many? So the execution of that policy should be further done by the government, giving psychologists, placing them in scheme of service so that the services of psychologists will be available and affordable to the Nigerian populace should be pursued. And Nigerian Psychological Association has pushed for a bill. The last National Assembly has approved of it. Let all hands be on deck to appeal to the President of the country to assent to it.
As a quick response to the motion moved by the Senate for the ban of sale of sniper in markets around the country, government agencies in charge of food and drugs regulation, NAFDAC, passed a circular banning the sale of 100 milligram of sniper in market except agro markets, which have the authority to sell the product. The Director General of NAFDAC, Mojisola Adeyeye, addresses the misuse of the product and other measures employed by NAFDAC and other health practitioners she hopes will help in keeping Nigerians alive.
When I heard that one of our regulated products, diclovers, is responsible, partly responsible for the suicide that people are committing, I became perturbed. They mentioned sniper, but sniper is just one of the products of diclovers. You know, there are several, many of them. I became perturbed because our products should not be killing people. We should be safeguarding the health of our nation. We should be fostering trade through agriculture because of the product that we regulate, agrochemicals. And the diclovers is an agrochemical. As soon as we heard that, the Director of Veterinary Medicine and Allied Products started discussing with our stakeholders, those who use diclovers or control it. We came up with solutions. Hopefully it will work to ensure that people don't have access, an easy access to a product that can kill.
The social media has been argued as being a great contributor to not just the high rate of suicide in Nigeria, but also around the world. Social media influencer Matilda Duncan explains why a lot of people fall prey to these exotic lifestyles on the social media.
There are certain things that just become trends. 1 minute is this, the other is that. And 1 minute is tone your skin. The next minute is fix your body. Now is suicide. It's very sad because that's the death or life being lost, pretty much. And it's amazing how life has become so digitalized that everything we do and see and feel is right there on our mobile phones. It's a click away, it's a picture away, it's a story away. And I find out now that it's almost like people are finding out even ways to kill themselves on social media, which is so sad. It's no more by hanging, because nothing can really carry people anymore. It's either you're popping a pill or drinking some kind of, you know, chemical or whatever. And it's almost like it's okay to do it. Now, I understand that most people that would go ahead and decide to take their own lives are probably depressed from something, things that they probably see. And I've sat back in my life saying, there's no way social media can all be 100% pure. I mean, I've been in Abuja before and I've posted pictures when I was in America. So why would anybody think at that moment I'm in America? You know what I mean? So it's almost like, it's like 100% smack back. Everything about social media can make you go, why isn't it happening to me? Why isn't my own pretty good? Why am I not driving that car? Why am I not? You start to ask yourself questions. You start to doubt yourself. You start to wonder. And then at that point, there's no other option but to say, you know what, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should just take my own life.
For individuals battling with depression and suicidal thought in Nigeria, there are not many well-known centers they can go to for help. But in recent times, there have been campaigns by private individuals on the various media platforms encouraging potential suicide victims to speak out and reach out when they need help.
We started MASHI, which is the acronym, in response to the increased rates of suicide across the country. And we thought that we should intervene at the stage of counseling. So what we've been doing is we have a very active social media presence, and then we announce, if you have suicidal thoughts, reach us. And we have consultants and volunteers working with us across the country and outside Nigeria. What we do is, if somebody says, look, I feel like taking my life, because we notice that suicide is not an immediate thought. It's planted like a seed and then it starts growing for some people. We say that once that begins to happen, you begin to have recurrent thoughts of suicide. Ask for help, talk to somebody. So once they do that, we link them up with a professional who talks to them. And when it's necessary, there's also a physical meeting. And if you also have to see a professional for medication and therapy, you're also referred. That is what we're doing. That's what we've been doing.
I am grateful to my friends, Professor Hope Egaga and others who have put together an initiative to prevent suicide. And a few other initiatives that are there. It's called HASA on Facebook, HASA. People can Google it and become part of these initiatives, because each one of us, there is something we can do. We can reach out to somebody. Touch somebody, and you may discover that this person that is contemplating suicide, all he needs is somebody to talk to. All he needs is somebody to help him meet some basic need. And every one of us can reach out to somebody. All the people that belong to the elite class, if we take 2, 3 people and reach out to them with the resources that we have, that we are capable of, then this era of suicide, increased suicide, we may see a change in it.
Despite the pressing unusual challenges we have been faced with in Nigeria in the last couple of years, some of which we now blame for the high rate of suicide in the country. However, the normal struggles of life will never go away. So, as humans, we must toughen up, face our problems and challenges squarely with a positive mindset. And like the saying goes, the sun is going to shine again.
This time calls for rededication. This time calls for rejuvenation. This time calls for family and social networking. This time calls for picking of calls and responding to people, finding out what is happening to your friends, and giving lending or listening ears, so that you never can tell the person you are going to say it's okay to could be that will be the saving grace. Life is good, but life is full of challenges. Life is full of paradoxes, and that is why you hear, the more you look, the less you see.
Just because they're having it good at this time doesn't mean you are not good. You're good in your own way. Everybody who goes on a particular track of race of life, they would get there they would never really get there at the same time, but they'll get there all the same. So if it's not your turn, it's not your turn. If it is, then it is.
Life is precious. Life is very precious, and it is a gift. And we are supposed to live that life and return to God to give a report of that life. We who are religious people, who are Christians and Muslims, we can't afford to contemplate suicide in spite of difficulty. We should recognize that hardship is part of life. Hardship is part of life. Distress is part of life. The best human beings whose stories we know are not people who have never had challenges. They are people who have overcome enormous challenges. They are among the best stories. The best stories we read are not stories of people who go from the marketplace to the supermarket to the discotheque and so on. They are stories of people who went to prison and came back. They are stories of people who were orphaned and struggled through and became somebody. They are stories of people who had accident, lost a limb, and yet became somebody. So the best stories are not stories of people who have never had problems. They are stories of people who have overcome problems.
I know that it's been very challenging socially, economically in the country. It's been difficult, but hey, there is always a way when you will keep yourself engaged. Engage yourself. Do something you love. And enlighten yourself in the areas of things. Because when you're consistently engaged, it'll be difficult for your mind to disengage from the activities that you're doing into something that will take your own life. Those of you who are around people that are withdrawn, it is important that you come closer rather than stay away from them. Try to find out how people are feeling, what's going on with them. Check on your friends, you know, because life is just one, right? Sometimes some people say YOLO, you only live once. Life is just one. You need to stay happy, you need to stay active. There are people around you who love you and who would probably, you're taking your own life may force them to do the same because you could put them in a position of depression. Stay well, stay healthy, and know that we all love you.
It is not a crime to be depressed. It is a mental state. And my advice is talk with your parents, talk with your friends. Don't hide your feelings. Don't hide your feelings. Be vulnerable, meaning let people know that you can cry. You are not too happy, you are sad and whatnot. The churches, the mosques, the friends, the community leaders, they have to get involved. Parents have to be parents. You cannot be friends with your children because friends can hide things from friends. Parents will stand up and say, I love you, but I'm going to discipline you.
That problem you think is gargantuan, that problem you think is a mountain, other people are coping with it. Somehow they resolve it. If it's failure, if you fail today, you pass tomorrow. If you're indebted today, you could raise the money tomorrow. But if you terminate your life, you may have solved the problems for yourself, but you have created problems for others, for your parents, for your family, for your friends, and for everybody. So don't take your life. Be positive.